Hi everyone, this is Zoe. I'm back with another edition of the American Chess Magazine puzzle calendar. Let's get into the puzzles. This was the puzzle for March 31st. It was composed by Vladimir Moshkin in the year 1980. Again, all the puzzles in this series are white to move, mate in 2. If you want to try to solve this puzzle for yourself, then go ahead and pause the video here. So for me, this puzzle had a difficulty rating of 5 out of 10 and a satisfaction rating of 5 out of 5. Here in this position, for me, it was kind of obvious from the start that it would be about Zugzwang, just because so many of Black's pieces are restricted and can't really move. For example, this king has literally no squares to go to, same with this bishop, this pawn, and most of Black's pieces. If this rook moves, then that will allow bishop to d3 mate. Oopsie. And if this knight moves, then that will allow bishop to f3 checkmate. So 2 of Black's pieces are already restricted. The only 2 we need to watch out for are this knight on b3 and this bishop on d1. So for me, this knight on b3 isn't really doing anything, right? The only thing it's really doing is guarding this knight on d4. So I thought, well, why don't I use my knight to attack this knight? That way, if the b3 knight moves, then white will have knight takes d4 checkmate. The first move considered, therefore, was knight to c6, and the idea is that all the previous Zugzwang stuff still applies, and now if Black plays knight takes a1, then white has knight takes d4 checkmate. But the problem, of course, is that in the starting position, we labeled 2 of Black's pieces that can still move. And after knight to c6, Black can play bishop to c2, moving the bishop, and white does not have mate in 1. All of this stuff fails because Black has perfect defense, just barely works. Knight to c2 fails in the same way. Black can play bishop takes c2, and white doesn't have any mate. Therefore, I thought, well, why don't I use this knight on e1 to attack the knight on d4? That way, maybe something different will happen. So knight to f3 was one of the moves I considered, and now if bishop to c2, rook takes h2 is checkmate because this rook is opened up and controls this f1 escape square. And if this knight on b3 moves, again, white has knight takes d4 checkmate. But the problem is that this knight on f3 blocks the bishop from going to this key square. So Black will simply run their knight away, and white normally would have bishop f3 checkmate, but unfortunately now it's blocked by their own knight. Therefore, the right answer is knight e to c2. Now, all the previous Zugzwang still applies. If the rook moves, there's bishop to d3. If the knight moves, there's bishop to f3. And now if bishop takes, there's still rook takes h2. And if the knight moves, then knight takes d4. Here it was really all about seeing all your possible options and also seeing what your opponent could play against them. For this weekend, April 1st to 2nd, it was composed by Vidar Cardos in the year 1960. Again, if you want to solve this puzzle for yourself, then go ahead and pause the video here. So for me, this puzzle had a difficulty rating of 4 out of 10 and a satisfaction rating of 4.5 out of 5. Here, it's even more obvious that the puzzle is going to be about Zugzwang because Black literally only has one legal move. But unfortunately, it's hard to figure out what white should do after this one legal move. After f3, white doesn't really have any checkmates. If the knight moves, gives a check, then the Black king can simply run to e5 or f4. And if knight to f2, same thing, the king can run away. It's really hard to figure out how to stop this f3 move. For example, if bishop to g4 definitely is something you need to consider. After Black plays f3, bishop takes f3 unfortunately allows king takes f5, and if queen takes f3, Black can take the knight. So here it's really about patterns and basically trying a bunch of moves in a row. Queen to c2, creating the idea of maybe some sort of discovered double check ideas, still doesn't work because, again, it's always these 2 squares that the Black king can run to after white's knight moves away. So therefore you get the idea of, what if I just get rid of those 2 squares with queen h2? Now if f3, knight c5 is checkmate, and if king takes d3, queen c2 is checkmate, and if e2, then queen takes e2 is checkmate. So this queen h2 does end up being the right answer. Basically, white has to figure out how to stop Black's king from escaping, even if it looks like white's losing a little bit of control here. So those were the puzzles for this slightly shorter edition of the American Chess Magazine puzzle calendar. They were definitely about Zugzwang, which was nice to see. It's definitely a very fun theme to explore in these artistic puzzles. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, if you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe. And that's all for today. Bye!